Welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name is, of course, Csaw or Chris, and today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2020. And today we are talking about a very, very exciting topic that is flying. And I wanted to do flying ever since I knew flying was a thing you could do in Final Fantasy XIV. So I've been very excited to talk about it because that usually means I've done it. So here we are. This has really been quite the topic for a number of reasons. But number one, I think there aren't too many MMOs that fully embrace flying mounts. The biggest two obviously being Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. Yes, there is certain flying mounts in other games, notably Guild Wars 2 has different mounts that you can fly on, but both of these mounts in Guild Wars 2 are typically designed for specific purposes, and we will do a mount comparison video amongst many MMOs eventually, but they're very different in the ways that you would fly, whereas in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, they're kind of ground mounts that just work in the sky. So it's pretty cool, and something that I want to talk about for a while. We currently, as you can see in the background here, are collecting the aether currents, or ether currents if you prefer. I'm not entirely sure how they're pronounced. These are found in the maps where you can fly, and what you need to do is you need to collect the currents to be able to fly in the map. So this is, kind of a typical thing that we see with flying mounts nowadays, and I don't know if this was always the case of Final Fantasy XIV or if it was something that was added on later, but in World of Warcraft, at the very start of things, you could go ahead and just purchase your flying mount and your flying skill, and you'd be good to go. As time's gone on and newer expansions have come out, they've limited how quickly you can get flying. So instead of being able to fly right with the new expansion, if you have the gold to buy it, instead you have to wait to do a Pathfinder quest, or at least I think it's two parts of a Pathfinder quest, to be able to fly in the zones. And the quests themselves, or achievements if you will, take quite some time to do. You kind of have to do the entire story area for your character, as well as certain different exploration things, and on top of all this, they're typically not released to a state where you can actually fly until quite some time into the expansion. In this situation, you have to do a couple things in Final Fantasy XIV to actually get to fly. The first one you just saw is there are several quests throughout Final Fantasy XIV in the region that you're trying to fly that will give you an aether current. These are typically very quick quests. One of them, however, was for the optional dungeon, which I would recommend doing anyways to get a dungeon, but it was the longer one because it took like half an hour to run the dungeon. The other quests, I think there was like 3 or 4 of them, took like 2 to 5 minutes each, so really not that big of a thing. And then the final piece that you're seeing right now is that you go around the map and you explore and you find different aether currents. And it's not like you're left to your own devices. You do have a device. You have a compass that you can see me clicking right here, that will tell you the approximate location of the aether current. So it'll tell you like north this many steps. It doesn't use the term steps, but I'm just going to use steps because I don't know what term it's using, and just using steps in place of it has worked okay for me. But yeah, you'll see them, they're like little swirling balls here, and you just simply click on them and it will absorb into you. So it's a pretty fun thing to do, and it does force you to explore the map pretty good, but it is pretty quick to do in comparison to the Pathfinder quests. Now, the big difference here is that this is a really old expansion compared to, I'm typically comparing things to kind of more Battle for Azeroth and stuff for that. So I don't know if in Shadowbringers if things have changed and there are more intense story steps you have to do before you can fly. I also did a lot of the story in this area before I chose to do the flying. I'm not sure how far you would have to progress, My gut tells me that it was to this outpost, which is about halfway to 3/4 of the way through the story in this zone, because that unlocked a lot of different quests right here, including the optional story. So you might have to do a fair bit of the story before you can get all of the different aether currents, but I'm not entirely sure what the step is. So you can see me turning in the last two here, and like the unlocking these would have taken a while, but the actual quests, they were kill like a couple monsters right beside this camp. So it was really nothing crazy once you actually were able to do it. So that was pretty cool. And it does force you to do a few additional quests to get a little background story, right? Which is really cool. But yeah, so we turn these in, we uncover flying mounts, a lot of different rewards and achievements coming up. It was actually one of the bigger like achievements I've felt in this game. Like, you know, getting to the end of A Realm Reborn was pretty big, getting into Heavenswards was pretty big, and unlocking flying felt really, really big. Like I was like, wow, I enabled something that I'm able to do for the first time. So it was a really cool feeling. It does give you a little bit of explanation of how to do flying. I immediately mounted onto the one mount I own that cannot fly. And I was just trying to jump around and get it to fly. So that was my first fail. And you know me, I like including fails into this. So there you go. Fiddling around with that for a bit, and I was like, okay, we're able to fly. Because a lot of people in the comments mentioned that most mounts can fly. So I was just checking that I did have, and you can see all the aether currents there collected. And then we're gonna go into our mounts, and we're gonna take a little bit of a look here at what can fly and what can't fly. The one that I pegged as flying, and you can see it says movement and it says terrestrial, and I'm like, huh. I wanted to try this other mount, and if I did, which you're about to see here, I actually don't do it, but the black one does, and we'll get to that in a second. I chose this one because it looked the most flying, and there you go, I'm off the ground. It was like magic right here. Like, I was like, oh my god, I'm doing it. As I just progressed into the air. Such a cool feeling. Like, I remember this in World of Warcraft when I flew for the first time, as I don't know when it was. It would have been in Wrath of the Lich King, so quite a while ago. I was like, wow, this is crazy. Because there's so many like monsters on the ground that are dangerous, and now you're away from them. You also note I do hit kind of like a ceiling in this game, so you can see that there is a limit to how high you can fly, and then I tried pushing the kind of descend button. It kind of just slowly drops you, which is pretty interesting. It's also the same button that happens if you click the mount button again. It's the same button that also clicks if you try to unclick your flying or mounted buff. So I don't think there's actually a way for you to drop to your death from your mount, which let's just say I was experimenting with for a little bit, because notably one of the interesting things you could do in World of Warcraft, specifically on a pally, is you could fly up really high and then you could drop down and then you could bubble or go immune for a second, and it was a pretty cool entrance into fights. At least I thought it was pretty interesting. But yeah, so the final part of this video is just going to be me enjoying my flying mount. We're going to travel around the map, which is kind of interesting because it's a map that I did a exploration video on when I was on a ground mount, and it feels very different now that I'm flying. For instance, one of the biggest parts of this map is this bridge, and pretty much you have to go to this bridge unless you want to take a really long way around to get to the other side. But this time I was able to fly over a little bit more on the right side of the map, and I was able to see some different views that I hadn't seen before, so, such as going up onto this ledge here. So it does offer a lot of exploration and different areas you're not able to get to easily. It also is just a really cool feeling because I know how long it took to get to the other map. Or other parts of this map. For instance, I did a lot of quests in here to begin with, and now flying to different locations, I was like, wow, I can travel around really, really quick. And I'm not sure if there are different mount speeds now for flying, or what the deal is. I know for ground mounts, depending on how much of those currents you collect, and different quests you complete and stuff like that, you can increase their speed in different ways, I think. I've never really paid attention to it, but I have noticed that certain maps and certain areas, my mount feels a lot slower than other ones. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. So I tried to land on this pointy rock here to switch mounts. It wouldn't let me dismount, so it seems like if you're not able to stand on something, it just won't let you get out of your mount, which is fair. I wanted to try the ship because it's flatter, but it's also something you can't super easily get onto on a ground mount, but you were able to get out, which was cool. And we're going to try out some new mounts and see what else we can fly with. Immediately, I go to the chocobo again, and I really want to make it work. I also noticed that there was a random flying mount button, and this changed a lot of things for me. So I got into this absolutely magical flying robot. I've fallen in love with this mount in a completely new way now that you can fly around with it. I know you guys aren't hearing the mount music, and a lot of you have said to listen to it. I have heard it. It's awesome. It's so cool. It really is. I will put it in a video eventually. The main reason I haven't at this point is just because I'm doing a lot of skip arounds, and I'm too lazy to plan ahead and remove the audio and then put it in afterwards. So I will eventually do it. I promise. I promise. But look at this. This is so cool. And so you do need to find, once again, a nice little spot to land. I got to try out this awesome sheep mount, which in no way looks like it should fly, but here you go. Just galloping through the sky. This is probably one of the most adorable flying mounts I've ever seen in any game. It's so amazing, and the way I like fit on it is another part of this. Like, I'm just sort of curled up in a ball on top of it, with my legs, just trying to get around it as much as I can, and it's so cool. In terms of the visuals of the map, coming over to this side where there's definitely like a lot of scars of war and frozen dragons was really cool as well. I hadn't noticed how epic the fight scene over here looked from above, which is, it's awesome to get that kind of feeling, right? It's super cool. The final mount that I could use is my black chocobo. So if I tried this one right away, I would have flown away, but no, I had to try the normal one. This was really cool. This bird does not look like it should be able to fly, like without me on it, let alone with me on it. The size of those wings compared to everything else on its body, like, it would have to be absolutely just going so quick with those wings, and I don't know if it's doing that, but I'm gonna believe it. I like the big claws, the talons below too. It just looks so creepy. Like, it's a creepy little mount, but it is cool. It is fun. I enjoy riding it. I just loved this experience so much, and I'm super excited to discover flying in all of the other maps as well. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you are having a great weekend, and I will see you in our next video. Thanks for watching.